भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेमदेवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। परीक्ष्य लोकान् कर्मचितान् ब्राह्मणः निर्वेदमायात्नास्त्यकृतः कृतेन तद्विज्ञानार्थं स गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत् तद्विज्ञानार्थं स गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत् That A is somehow muted in the Western palate, so we have to make it long. Yeah. Tadvijna is long, Artham again long. Gurumeva abhigachet, but Gurumeva abhigachet. So everything has to be like that. Okay, so we start from the beginning. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanah.
Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanah.
Nastyak nirvedamaya nastyak kritah kritena.
Nirvedamaya nastyak kritah kritena.
Nirvedamaya nastyak kritah kritena.
Nirvedamaya nastyak kritah kritena.
Tadvijnanartham sa gurumevabhigachet.
Tadvijnanartham sa gurumevabhigachet.
Samitpanishrotriyam brahmanishtam.
Samitpanishrotriyam brahmanishtam.
Now is there sound? There is no sound. No, here, there. Is this on?
This is on.
Yeah, now I put this one on. This one was off.
Oh.
Yeah. One more time. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanah.
Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanah.
Who said brahmanah? Ah, what is it? So that's why we are going to do it again. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanah.
Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanah.
Nirvedamayan nastyak kritah kritena.
Nirvedamayan nastyak kritah kritena.
Tadvijnanartham sa gurumevabhigachet.
Tadvijnanartham sa gurumevabhigachet.
Samitpanishrotriyam brahmanishtam.
Samitpanishrotriyam brahmanishtam.
Yeah. Now, last weekend, we talked about the trust. The whole thing revolves around the question of trust. Yeah. And this trust is something, the potential to trust is given in the baby. We saw that. But it gets a little dushita, polluted by the baby's, just the act of babies growing up and growing out of this trust, because it deals with disappointments of various kinds in the surroundings, and therefore the teaching only speaks when this trust is kind of regained after discovering, after processing the disappointment. And how is this disappointment best processed? I mean, you can say through bhoga first and then through yoga, all this is okay. But really, it is processed through the rediscovery of the parents. How? As the mother and father of the universe. So the disappointment by the local parents is put at the feet of the mother and the father of the universe in the discovery of Ishvara as infallible. And so the local parents are just local. Yeah. You localize the parents and you globalize Ishvara. This is the trick. This is how one gets past that disappointment. And all the hooks of samsara. The hooks are there because the expectations are there. Hurts are there. Fears are there. And that's why we cannot meet a single person without expecting something. They should be this way, they should not be that way, they should do this. No, they should do this. This is what the whole thing is. So, the process of letting go is really not so much letting go, because it's very difficult to let go. What are you going to let go? And that's scary. So the process of letting go is actually surrendering to Bhagavan and discovering Bhagavan. Inviting Bhagavan in one's life is equal to letting go. That is what it is. So those who are afraid of letting go, there is good news. You're not letting go. You're bringing on one more thing into your life. Oh, that sounds good. Where will I keep it? In the head, or in the puja room. Yeah, keep it in your place where you keep your altar. And so the letting go is bringing, but I don't have room, I'm already a hoarder. How can I bring one more thing? Well, this is the only thing to bring in. All other things are non-things. This is the thing that makes other nothings into things. Yeah, this is the thing to bring in. So, bringing Ishvara into one's life. Oh, I have to go Ishvara shopping? Yeah, that's what you have to do. How to shop for Ishvara? The nice thing is, Ishvara shop, you don't have to go to mall. You don't have to go to specialty stores. Correct? And to shop for Ishvara, you don't have to go to, some online shop and order things. You don't have to do that. Ishvara being available everywhere, it's not some exotic oriental shop where you shop for Ishvara. And you can shop for Ishvara sitting right in front of the window, giving the term window shopping an entirely new meaning. Yeah. Because whatever you see is Ishvara. That's why you can go bring a rock from the garden, wash it and put it on your altar. This is inviting Ishvara. If it's done with proper understanding, this is inviting Ishvara. This is Ishvara shopping. This is inviting Ishvara into one's life. Oh, it's kind of like a pet rock. Yes, you can think like that. You can pet it every day. Yeah, you can think like that. No problem. That's what it is, And so this is what is called inviting Ishvara into one's life. What does that mean? I mean, even though we have a symbol, whether it's a beautiful murti means a incarnate form, or it's a Shivalinga, a smoothed out rock, lulled by the Mother Narmada. She made him, she made him all smooth and round. And so like this, You can do that. Or, that is just a representation. But what does it signify? Inviting Ishvara into my life is a very mature thing to do. It signifies, it signifies more than the object that you have on the altar to represent that Ishvara. Whether it's an object or a carving or a stone, whatever it is, a photograph, whatever it is. It is not that anybody is praying to the stone or the idol. That's idle talk. One is really transcending that idol, so to speak. And one is praying to Ishvara. Since everything has the presence of Ishvara, I can invoke this Ishvara in any one thing. In any one thing. And what is that invocation? That invocation has to do with the understanding that whatever is unalterable, I surrender at the altar. That is infallible. I recognize the unalterable as infallible, and that is my greatest blessing. That means Ishvara has walked into my life. And so the altar of surrender has the power to alter my vision. That's why it's called altar, because it alters me. It's the only thing that can alter this fellow full of fears and tears and raga, dvesha, problems and unending Pandora's box jiva, full of all kinds of buzzing insects ready to come out and proliferate the earth. Yeah, because each jiva is a box, Pandora's box. And then what do they spread? Fears and tears of samsara. Now that's why everything keeps status quo. That's what it is. So this is what the altar is. And this is why the supplication or the surrender becomes important, because the surrender is metaphorical. And what does it symbolize? It symbolizes that I am okay with the unalterable because I have put it at the altar. I am okay with this loda body and this tiny brain. Most of the time it doesn't know how to think, and when it thinks, it comes to the wrong conclusions about itself, about Bhagavan, about the Jagat. This thing I am able to let go. I am able to be okay with it. Why? Because I have invited Bhagavan to come and sit in my life, in my house, in my brain, in my body. Oh, I thought Bhagavan is already in my body, brain, mind. Yes, but do you know it? No. So why I have to invite? Because it's each time it is invoked, it's a remembrance of what already is. That I am not the Deha, I am the Dehi. It's metaphorical, I told you. This is why the prayer is needed. And Shraddha and Bhakti are twins. Without Bhakti, this is Bhakti. Bhakti is not some ding ding, what is that? Bell. Yeah. And then na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam. It's not that. That is just an expression of Bhakti. The ding ding and the incense and the flowers and all these things, that is an expression. It's an expression of what? And that is Bhakti. What is it an expression of? That is Bhakti. We cannot mistake Bhakti for the water and the milk and the, incense and the, Naivedya, Yajna, Ghee. That is not Bhakti. That's just the language to express which thing. That is Bhakti. To express that attitude of making, to express that attitude or to cultivate that attitude of seeing the infallible, recognizing the infallible in my life and seeing and allowing it to let it be. Trusting. Here is where the trust comes. That's why Bhakti and Shraddha are identical twins. Each one brings in the other. Without Bhakti there is no Shraddha. Without Shraddha there is no knowledge. We can, say bye-bye. We can wave a hanky to Vedanta. Vedanta here is going in the distance. And in the distance the hand is not seen. That's why they wave the hanky. And the hanky is also useful because after Vedanta has departed, you can go like this. This is what happens without Bhakti. But why Bhakti is needed for the knowledge? Because Shraddha is needed for the knowledge. Why Bhakti is needed for Shraddha? Because that's how it is. Why that's how it is? Because it cannot be any other way. Why it can't be any other way? So that you can ask this question. Why should I ask this question? Because right now you are not thinking of any other question. What else to say? This is the thing. The why not, why? And that why regenerates into why me. You see? The precursor to why me is why. Yeah. This why is a big thing. This why, is generally the why comes from lack of Shraddha. That's really what it is. Because the why comes from a deep insurgency from within. I am not the controller of the universe. How come? Why not? I thought I was in charge. Now you are saying you have to bring in some Ishvara from somewhere. Where am I going to do that? Why? Because this is infallible. Why is it infallible? Meaning I am greater. This Ahankara. Who said it's infallible? How do you know it's infallible? How do you know it's infallible? Even though the word how is used, is actually there's a lurking sneaky why there. Why do you say it is infallible? It's a lurky, sneaky why. Sneaky plus lurky, slurky. Yeah. Why? This each time you say why, then each time we say why, there is a certain way in which the distrust is confirmed. Yeah. Distrust is confirmed by by keeping ourselves in a place of constant questioning. And even when the answers are being hit on the head, literally, one is not seeing, because that answer is also questioned into another why. Why? And so the person goes about life in the shape of a question mark. Yeah. Becomes like that also. Yeah. In the shape of a question mark. Permanent question mark. And that's a place of safety. For the samsari jiva, the permanent questioner is a place of safety, because I don't have to take any answers. Anybody gives an answer, even tries to give an answer. Poor Vedanta teacher here, Yeah, why everyone else has to say why me? I'll say why me. Yeah. So the Vedanta teacher tries to give an answer. And then what happens? It's transformed into another question. Yeah. So the permanent questioner keeps the samsari in place within. So therefore, the Bhagavan feels uninvited and hides behind all the ragadveshas, as he has been doing for many, many janmas. Yeah. Even though Bhagavan is right there, hides under a heap of, ragadveshas. A composting heap. That's what it is. Yeah. of ragadveshas festering. This is what it is. Because the questioner is in place. Who is the questioner? Yesterday we saw Pramata. In fact, the questioner is not Pramata means knower. Here the knowing is blocked by the why. So even though we are calling him a knower, him, her, knower, knoweress, there is no knower here. There is not a Pramata who is behind the why. There is a permanent Prashta. Who is the Prashta? Prashtru. Who is the Prashtru? Questioner. Comes back to this question mark. No wonder when Adi Shankara was having a satsang after class at the foot of a temple. He was sitting, he had finished darshan at the temple and he was walking out, and then some people came and sat in front of him, and so he also sat down. He was answering questions at the steps of the temple. And one of them said, "Where is Ajnanam?" And he looked around because that is for added effect. See? Nobody, not even the time tested Vedanta teacher can answer my questions. See? A little jig is happening inside. See? No one can top me. Not in Vedanta Shastra, but in dislocating even the best of teachers. I put them in a spin. Yes. I just bring out the worst in everyone. As though that's a qualification. Yeah. But while saying that, the questioner is intact with him. And what does this fellow say? This fellow asked the question to Adi Shankara. Where is the Ajnanam? Atma cannot be Ajnani. He's extrapolating. He's giving his reasonings. Does Atma have Ajnanam? Obviously not. Does Anatma have Ajnanam? Even if it has Ajnanam, what is the use? What can it have? Can Anatma be enlightened? No. Where is this Ajnanam located? He asked. Tell. Yat tat pashyasi. Tad vada. Tell. And Adi Shankara, without batting an eyelid, said, Prashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Means it is there, lodged in the nature of the one who is questioning. That's what he said. So when Adi Shankara in ancient India has been accosted by these kinds of people, what to talk of now in the final throes of Kali Yuga, when things have gotten much worse? What to talk of now? So therefore we know that the questioner in the form of the Purva Pakshi within has had a long stay. Yeah. Oh, so that means I have to take everything you say hook, line and sinker. No, that's not what I'm saying. Yeah, but that's what you're preparing to say. No, I'm not. No, that's what I think you're going to say. You'll be surprised. If that's what you think I'm going to say, prepare to get surprised. Because you see, the questioning means what? We are talking of a certain kind of a combative questioning based on the original distrust arising from the unconscious, that is a universal experience. And the discernment, hopefully, because of the viveka, makes one understand the difference between questions that are genuinely coming out of lack of understanding but not lack of Shraddha, and questions that are arising because one is trying to defend oneself, not oneself, Ragadvesha family, and one is trying to dismantle even the nascent Shraddha that could be arising within. There is a difference between those kinds of questions. So the interrogative, combative questions which have the effect of creating a smoke screen behind which the Ragadvesha and behind which this permanent prashta can hide. That is what is not helpful to the study of Vedanta. In other words, these Purva Paksha type of things. But still, even Purva Paksha is encouraged. You see? Yeah. Purva Paksha is encouraged because one knows, in the study it is understood that the cultivation of trust is a process. So until then it is encouraged. Right up to Brahma Sutra, it is encouraged. And then what? Well, there has to be a place within oneself, a time where one says, today I'm going to set aside the cudgels. Today I'm going to disarm, no matter how scary it is. Today I'm going to disrobe this whole, what is that, cloak. The cloak in the shape of tiny, tiny question marks that I don to hide behind. Today I'm going to take a chance. That is Shraddha. And this Shraddha is a process. That's why it doesn't allow us to say something such as, oh, I have gained Shraddha, finished. It's not a one-time thing. In fact, if you even look at your own trajectory, 3 years ago perhaps, those who were studying thought, I have Shraddha, right? And think of the Shraddha then and the Shraddha now. That's all. See? Use your own experience and see how it is a different Shraddha. Each time it's new and it's deeper. That's what the whole thing is. And without this Shraddha, the knowledge is like, seeds, the kernels of blossoming flowers of oneness that are cast on a hot stone. What will happen to the knowledge? Yeah, it will bake, that's all. It will roast. Yeah, you can have some roasted seeds, that's all. In Eugene they eat these roasted seeds. And you can eat those roasted seeds. Enjoy. Yeah. It's not good for anything. It's not good. It will not take root because the hot rock of doubt fries the knowledge. That's what it does. So Shraddha has to be brought in, borrowed, begged, or whatever you do. Even if you have to borrow Shraddha from the person sitting next to you, do that. Do that. Because this is the only way to gain this teaching. And this verse number 12 is all about, 11, 12, is all about Shraddha. That is the cornerstone. And then I have made another point, even connected to the last talk, is that Shraddha is the easiest and quickest way to cultivate Shraddha is through the bhakti. Bhaja sevayam. Yeah, bhakti. Bhakti means, inviting Bhagavan into my life. That is why we have puja. That is why we have a daily practice of at least lighting one lamp, standing in front of the altar or sitting in front of the altar even for 5-10 minutes. Help yourself with this practice. This is not a big thing. And just, stand with the hands folded. The hands folded is a wonderful symbol because then they are not up to mischief. They are right in front of you and they have been trained to just stand like this. They are not going here, going there. The hands, the karmendriyas, this is Dhamma. This is the best expression of Dhamma. Namaha. Yeah. Nama leads to Dhamma. Yeah. And so this Namaha, this Namas, it leads to Dhamma. That's what it is. Namas. Namaha. Namaha te. And what is this Namaha? It's all, look at the fingers, it's a very beautiful metaphor. Look at the hands. In fact, if you measure the right hand and the left hand, one will be a little bigger. The dominant hand will be a little bigger, so they say. And also the fingers will be funny. One will be longer, one will be shorter. Small, minuscule differences will be there. This is all what is called Samudrika Lakshana, the ancient study of the signs within the body parts. And they were the first ones to establish that the right side is completely different from the left side. They were the first ones. It's an ancient science. And looking at the person, you can tell who they are. And there are people who can do this even today. I'm not going to tell you who they are because you will leave the classroom and go. You catch a plane and go. But they can look at you. This is fantastic. They can look at you. There is one person who comes to Sailorsburg regularly. They can look at you and tell your birth date. And the time of birth as well. Not just, oh, you were born on, 19th of July. No, not like that. Even the time of birthday will tell. Even if you don't know, they will tell. Even if your mother has forgotten, they will tell. They will tell the time of birth. Oh, what else can they tell? Many things. They can tell how many children you have while looking at your face. Yes. And they can tell what those children are doing by looking at your face and your body, your whole body. They make you stand. And sometimes they are so clever, they are so educated and erudite that they can look at a photograph and say all these things. Yeah. This is what is called Samudrika Lakshana. They can tell you a lot of things about yourself. This is, this puts out of job all those psychics in the West who are basically sidekicks of this knowledge. Yeah, they are not psychics at all. You have to see these fellows. Yeah. Amazing. So, back to Namas. Yeah. Namaha. So, the left hand and the right hand are different, correct? Yeah. And the fingers are also different. Each finger is different from the other. Look at this fellow, strong and stout, point enough to point. Because that is the pointing finger, wants to point at everything. It's also called the index finger because it makes a appendix of all the things done wrong to oneself. Yeah. Then we have the middle finger. That also, it's got ahankara. Oh, I'm the tallest. I'm the best. There's no one like me. And then we have the ring finger. Then this little fellow. What is the use of this fellow? I don't know. But pinky, this one is there. Then this funny looking fellow who seems to be separate from all of them. And same thing on the other hand. And they have nothing in common. So many discrete things. And then what? And then they all join together. The differences are swallowed within and without. This is Namas. This is Namaha. They all join together into one graceful mudra called Namaha Te, Namaste. And this is how you greet Bhagavan. And the beauty is, this is how you greet anyone in the tradition. I can do Namaste to Bhagavan. I can do Namaste to you. This is the beauty. Why? Because I transcend the body, mind, sense complex and go straight to the indweller. And that same indweller is the one I say Namaste to. I can say Namaste to myself. I can say Namaste to you. I can say Namaste to the whole universe. And this is the beauty, where all these differences are just made inconsequential. Namaste. And why is it the paramount expression of bhakti in this Namaste? Because the action mimics the truth of the tradition. in the sense that we are not in charge of why this is small, why this is big, why this hand is like this, why this hand is like that, why this finger doesn't work, why this one works, why this is the non-dominant hand, why this is the dominant hand. Here is where the whys resolve. All the whys resolve in this whys mudra. Yeah, all the whys and the why not. There is no time for all that. Because there are certain things we don't know why. That is the expression. That is why the karmendriyas come into play, because we don't know why. And when I acknowledge I don't know why this is happening, there is room for answers to come. When I keep asking why, there is no room, because the why, pervades. Why becomes all pervasive, like Wi-Fi. Yeah. Nowadays, anywhere you go, there is this Wi-Fi. So it becomes the why becomes all pervasive. The I don't know the why becomes a smoke screen for I don't know, and I'm scared. I don't know, and that's why I'm scared. I don't know, and I'm terrified. I don't know, and I'm uncomfortable. I don't know, and I feel strange about it. I don't know, and I'm vulnerable because I don't know why. All these are the stepping stones of the bhakti and the shraddha. And do you see how the why covers all these I don't knows? And then therefore in that there is no opening for anything to come, whether it's bhakti or the knowledge. One dons the cloak of why to hide I don't know. That's what it is, to hide the vulnerability of I don't know. But the namas, the action of namas is not a place of vulnerability. It's not a place of vulnerability. It's not a place of asking, please give me nothing. It's a place of strength. Yeah, it's vulnerability is the strength. That's what it is. It's not a place of permanent begging, give me this day our daily bread. Yeah, this is some prayer. Our Father. Okay, theek hai, nice. Where is this Father? Thou art somewhere in heaven. Having made the Jagat, you left us anatha, you left us orphans. Where is the mother? She died in childbirth because the Jagat was a very complicated delivery. No mother. Our Father, you art in heaven. Udhar jaake baith gaya. You went and sat somewhere, leaving us orphans. Still all right. Hallowed be thy name. Your name is holy. Theek hai. Thy kingdom come. Meaning that heaven which you are enjoying there, give us a little scrap here also. Yeah, this is bhashya of the daily prayer. And then what's the next line? Hallowed be thy name, ho gaya, finished.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be done, which is I like, which is fine. This is getting over the whys and the why nots.
But before that,
Yeah.
the daily prayer.
Yeah. Give us this day our daily bread. This is the rest of it is okay. Forgive us, all this, all this, is okay. But this give us this day our daily bread is a place of it's a different thing. We don't have this in the Hindu tradition. We don't have this. Give us this day our daily annam. You will never see this prayer. Yeah. Annam brahmeti vyajanat. See annam, see the daily bread as nothing but Bhagavan. That is what it is. And even in the Bible that is there, this is my body, this is my blood, like that bhavana is there. But you see the namas is a posture of converting my vulnerability And that's why it's held close to the heart, because this is where the vulnerability is felt. Oh, I feel flutter, murmur, flutter, mumble, grumble, fumble. This metaphorical spiritual heart is where all the emotions, the heavy hearted, broken hearted, questioning heart, satisfied heart, it's all goes back to the heart. Here is where the namas is held, right in the center. It's converting that vulnerability into the strength of knowing that these differences and these whys have an answer, and I don't know that, and I'm okay to not know that, because I have this kavacha of protection. I'm included in the rationale of the why, which I don't see, but I trust that I am included. Therefore, this expression of bhakti, the primal expression of bhakti, which has been borrowed by the Buddhists, by the Jains, by Christians, everybody does this now. This has become a universal symbol. And I know this because when I go to the interfaith conferences, everybody does this when I come in the room. They don't know anything, but they know this. Now it has become a universal symbol of prayer. This is the strength of the tradition, is that as soon as I acknowledge and surrender the vulnerability, stop questioning it and stop hiding it, what happens is that there is a great blessing that's happening. I'm included in that whole. I see myself included in that whole of all that is infallible, all that is all knowledge, all that is can never go wrong. Even the wrong is right. That is what the whole thing is. As soon as I surrender the vulnerability, I become strong. What a tradition! What a beautiful tradition! This is an amazing blessing. And so without bhakti, without doing this, there is no shraddha possible. That is why we have Shaunaka, who did so many yajnas that even in sleep he keeps going like this. His wife had to tie the hand to the bed. Where does it say that here? So anyway, it's a joke. Meaning, even in sleep, his hand, he's sleeping, but his hand is going like this. Because this is an expression of bhakti too, feeding the fire. This is the beauty of the tradition. And that without this shraddha and this bhakti, without the bhakti and the shraddha rather, there is no way to overcome the magnitude of the distrust that is felt by this Piva. Who is Piva?
Jiva.
Yeah, Pivik Jiva. Piva. So, by this Jiva with a lot of peeves, there is the magnitude of distrust. It's what's that? Unsurmountable. It feels unsurmountable. And again, the fact that I want to surmount it again shows that I want to be on the top and I want to remain while retaining the questioner in place. But here I am not trying to surmount it. I am trying to lay it at the feet of that which caused it. Here, take it. Take this one also. Take that one also. Take. I don't want. That's what it is. And I see that there is a certain hollowness, hallowedness, holiness in this, because I have entrusted it. Even though it's scary, how can I entrust this, Bhagavan who is 6 inches long on the altar, with all my distrust? Try it. Yeah. Try it. See what happens. And here everybody wants Vedanta in action. I don't want to sit and just listen. I want Vedanta in action. Left, right. This is Vedanta in action. Left, you see Bhagavan. Right, you see Bhagavan. In every step, you see Bhagavan. And our salute is this. Okay? Yeah, that's what it is. This is Vedanta march past. Yeah. Why is it march past? Because you march the past, your own past, right in the presence of Bhagavan. That's what it is. You see all the Ragadveshas doing left, right, they fall into line and they are surrendered. This whole army of Ragadveshas, first disciplined, asked to walk in front of Bhagavan. He's right, okay, go, stay, attention, okay, finished. And then you have no tension because they are given. So you wanted Vedanta in action, I'm giving it to you. Yeah, this is what it is. And let Bhagavan take the tension. Let Bhagavan put the Ragadveshas in detention. Why should you be worried? Why should you be worried? You are khali, free enough to pursue the final answer to all the whys. Yeah. This wisdom is the final answer to all the whys. Oh, it's going to answer all the whys? Yes, it is. Why? Because it is you. That's the last time you'll ask why. That's the only thing. But then with all these whys camouflaging this answer, you'll never get to the place of asking the correct question. The correct question is not why am I ignorant. The correct question is not why this is happening to me. The correct question is not why. The correct question is not even a why. How do I know this? How do I put myself in a place of understanding it? That is the right question. And the wrong questions of so many whys and why nots hide this desire for moksha. They place other desires on a pedestal, and this desire for mumuksha, this desire for moksha, this desire for knowledge is at the bottom of the heap. And stopping asking these useless whys puts one in a place of strength to convert the fire of moksha to the fire of the desire for knowledge. That is what this conversion has to take place. And that cannot be done without Shraddha, Bhakti and Viveka. So Shraddha, Bhakti we have discussed. And now Viveka. What is the Viveka? Viveka means I have even the slightest power of discernment. What is the discernment here? The discernment is seeing that whatever I am doing is embroiling me and entangling me further in and further and further into samsara. And what do I want to do? I want to get out of samsara. And what am I doing? Going deeper into samsara. This is the discrimination. What is samsara? A whole lot of anitya put together. A whole lot of anitya fed some steroids and put together. Yeah. This is anitya on steroids is samsara. So many anitya things, anitya. And they're all dancing, laughing and going crazy. And this jiva is also going crazy, trying to catch them, because each one is saying, catch me if you can. And you catch it, and then what happens? It self combusts, and then you go for the next one, because now it's exhausted, because it's on steroids. The high and then the low. That's what happens. So a bunch of all kinds of anityas strung together, and given a heavy dose of cortisone is called samsara. This is what is samsara. What am I missing? The string that is stringing them all together. Sutre maniganaha iva. In the string is the secret. That string that connects all these diverse beads of anitya is in fact nitya. And what is that string? Myself alone. And if I don't recognize it, I am strung along by all kinds of finite ends and finite means. I am strung out in samsara if I don't recognize this skein. That is this hidden oneness that is tying everything together. And that this hidden oneness is non separate from me. So the Viveka is two parts. One is I am going after that which never seems to be fulfilling me. The fulfillment I cannot gain from samsara because it is a string of anityas. It's a full of all kinds of anityas. So therefore, what I want is not samsara. I don't want anitya. What do I want? Nitya. What is this nitya? Oh, it's not in samsara. Do I have to go to heaven? Oh, one more yajna. Because that also I have tried. That's why in sleep also it goes like this. That also I have tried. It's not working, is it? Because the search for the infinite in finite places is not going to bring me that deliverance from samsara that I seek. This is what I have to understand. This is Viveka. So perhaps if I want Nitya, and Nitya means limitless. Why? Because it's there all the time. If it's there all the time, it cannot be separate from me. Viveka part 2. It cannot be separate from me. So it is myself alone. So through this mode of going about in the world, of constantly trying to gain something, thinking that that is the real thing, I am missing out on the real thing. Perhaps the real thing is not subject to being gained through all the things that I am doing. What am I doing? Action. Yeah. Perhaps the real thing, being real, is really me. That is what it is. This is what is Viveka. This is again a precursor to this knowledge. Viveka gives me the strength, the ability to discern between the finite and the infinite and point to samsara as the warehouse of the finite and point to myself as the warehouse of the infinite. So no need to ask where, it's right here. Pointing to myself as the storehouse of the infinite. And this myself, what kind of myself? The unknown myself. The undiscovered I is the storehouse of the infinite. So I have been going about it all wrong. I'm a karma hog and I have to now see that whatever I have done is not helping. It's just one more helping of samsara. It's not helping me to come closer to what I want. And part 3 of Viveka, I need help because I'm not able to understand this on my own. Even pocketbook Vedanta bought in airports is not helping me. Yeah, that's what airports are for. Usually people don't have time for all these things. In airport you sit down, you're just bored, the flight has been delayed, and then okay, I'll browse through the books, and the books that they put out generally and the display is got these catchy titles. The titles are all about be here now. Oh, is that a sign for me? Oh, be here now. Oh, that's profound. Yes, I think I'm going to buy this. Be here now. I'm going to buy this now. So, actually what you went in the book in that shop was to get some water for the next flight. But be here now attracted because it was there right now. It was here right now, and ironically, reproducing the title, and you could not but see the serendipity of it all. And then you buy this, and then you start reading it. And the flight is further delayed because you missed the plane. Got so caught up in the book, and the book was all about, what is that? how these travails of samsara, and then you just have to be here now. It's as simple as that. And the now is now, and the now is not then because it is now, and the now is not later because it is now. And then I missed the flight right now. So, these kinds of things create more of a longing, because this is all, you can't gain this from reading books. It's fine, it helps, because it actually, at the right moment, you get the right thing, You went for some kind of a hydrating fluid, but you got some kind of a, the dehydrated jiva got a little, what should I say, like a little spray of some mist of something that one was thinking that this is the greatest mystery. So the mist of the mystery was sprayed, and then the jiva felt a little happy, but the longing starts again. These kinds of books, these catchy titles, Be Here Now, End of Samsara. Wow! That of course you want to buy, End of Samsara. So then you collect all these books. And usually the books are written by authors who themselves are trying to know what it is. And sometimes writing about it helps them to, crystallize what they don't know. And then it's also an added benefit of getting royalties. Yeah, that's all it is. These books, they're not going to help. And the further viveka is knowing that I cannot read this through books. I need this help. I need to see someone who knows this and who can show me this as they see it. They can make me see. I have to find someone to help, because I'm in a helpless situation. That helplessness is a place of strength, because it helps me to seek the correct answer. And that helplessness, I come and I seek a teacher. This is something which is very, very important. I need a teacher. I need help. And in this DIY culture, what is DIY? Do it yourself. Yeah. This is very difficult to gain this blessing of knowing that I don't know and I need help. All the question marks, are surrendered to the teacher, and I don't know. And then this is very difficult in this do-it-yourself and self-help culture. This is a self-help culture. Sometimes people take me to various satsangs and everything. They say, can we give you a ride? Okay. We'll meet you at such and such a time. Okay. Sometimes the GPS malfunctions, or they don't know where they are going. They will do anything except stop on the road or stop at a gas station and ask. Will not ask. This is the self-help culture. I should know. I'll find out some way. And sometimes they call, some Bhagavan-like creature that is somewhere there in the satellites. Yeah, if the GPS doesn't function. And suddenly the voice comes from above. I've been through all this, I know. And it is some satellite subscription you subscribe, and then there are people standing by, and you say, I'm lost, but then you don't have to ask anyone. You have to ask this anonymous lady sitting somewhere like Bhagavati. And what is that called? Some satellite direction system, very costly, but you have to subscribe, and even in that subscription you can only get one call per month because it is Bhagavati. I don't know what that is called. Yeah, one star or something like that. Yeah, 1 star. Special navigation for those who are challenged. Suddenly they find themselves in the middle of something, and you can tell her anything. You can say, I'm surrounded by terrorists. She will tell you what to do. And you can say the car has gone inside the ocean. She will tell you supposedly what to do. If you can reach her, there's nothing like it. So some Bhagavati talks and then leads you out of this mess. But then you will not you won't pull into the gas station. You'd rather pay a subscription to have this you know, what is that feeling that one is in charge. This is the do it yourself. Do it, on your own. Pull yourself up from the bootstraps. Don't ask anybody for help. Why? Because that means you don't know. That means you are a useless fellow. That means you're not strong. That means you're not stable. And also, that if you ask for help, they will take advantage of you. If you say, I don't know, they will all come and fall upon you like a pack of hawks and eat you alive. So therefore, don't ever say you don't know. Pretend you know. This is why the Viveka doesn't further. Viveka may be there, but it doesn't further want to seek the teacher because of that fear again. You see how the Ashraddha and the Aviveka get married here? That fear is again the distrust. Go back to Bhakti, go back to Shraddha. That's why I discussed those first before Viveka. Even though in the books of Vedanta, technically Viveka is discussed first. That's why I did this, because this is how generally the trajectory of the Jivik thought pattern goes. This is why I discussed this. So the Viveka is very important to internalize, to cultivate, because I have to ask for help. And I have to, and this same person, this is what I don't understand in this culture. On the one hand, it's a do-it-yourself culture. Don't bother me, I'm all, I've taken everything for care of. I don't want to ask anybody anything. I've got all these systems in the house. The automatic feeder of the cat, and the dog. It just keeps, like Bhagavan keeps showering these pellets. Somewhere it falls, I suppose, into the bowl. Some kind of automatic release. Yeah. And the dog says, Prasad, and runs. I didn't even do puja today, the dog says, still Prasad has come. So this is a self-help culture. You don't ask anybody anything. You just have to go about. Even if you leave the house for a few days, automatic plant waterer, automatic, what is that? That lights suddenly go off, they on and off to confuse the burglars. Yeah, and the burglar has one over you. Burglar will sit and note down the time. 7:02. Oh, today also 7:02. Yesterday also 7:02. Aha, kuch gadbad hai. So this is, what I don't understand is this kind of a culture with so much defenses about asking for help wants, goes and subscribes to all kinds of things. Cooking class. Cooking class means what? There also you need help. No, but that's okay. I just pay them and they tell something and then I can go off. Cooking class, cha-cha-cha class, ballroom dancing. Yeah. When are you going to go to ballroom? Yeah, you don't even have time from the mall to go to ball. When are you going to go? Ballroom is so archaic. No, but I want to learn how to cha-cha-cha. Yeah, ballroom dancing. No problem saying I don't know and I'm going to get this. And then this, what is that? What you do in the air with the hands out? Gliding. Yeah, gliding. And then this yo-yo jumping, bungee called jumping. All that you will have gurus. But for Vedanta, where it is most needed, nobody, no. I'll just read a book on Upanishad, and I'll get it like this. So the guru allergy is not for music, dance, song, what else, other things, cooking guru, cha-cha-cha guru, grammar guru. Yeah, because see, as soon as I advertise Vedanta class, not many people, our regular people will come. You advertise Sanskrit class, a whole lot of people you never even knew existed will sign up. This is one, this is very interesting. This is something which has to be looked into, and we'll do that after we come back. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।